When I was in undergrad, and I've been licensed 5 years now, but when I was in undergrad, I went to a dinner and I met a man. And I thought he was cool and interesting. And we hung out one time, just one time. And the intensity of feelings and possibilities, when you're young and early 20s, you don't really know. I wanted to see him again, but he did not want to see me. The reasons don't really matter. He didn't want to see me. He was like religious. I have something, I guess, for attracting religious men who are so stuck in their faith. But he didn't want to see me again. He was leaving the island. And I could not accept that as fact. I was just so heartbroken about what could have been that I messaged his friend because the guy stopped responding to me. He stopped responding to me and I messaged his friend to try to figure out how can I get in contact with this person. That's probably the worst I've crashed out over a guy, like outside of my abusive relationship, not mine, but the abusive relationship that I was in that there's videos here on my channel about. I didn't watch Love Island and I'm going to get into all the things. You can look for the timestamps in the description box. There are certain things I want to talk about. I probably have more in common with Huda than uncommon. So when I saw clips of her on TikTok, because this summer I've spent some time consuming TikToks, I already pay attention to anyone who is becoming like prominent or that other people are talking about. Because when I'm working with my clients, listen, my clients are either versions of Huda and I see Black women. So I'm talking to Black women. I see versions of Huda where there's this crashing out over not getting the external validation, or someone who's friends with Huda or a version of someone who was raised by a Huda. Do you understand what I mean? That in all the different ways, people who are emotionally dysregulated create children, become those children, and need to find somebody like me to help them find their center and their ground. So I don't have a side, right? I think if I pick a side, I will always pick Black women's side, which has been like my hesitation doing this video because I can't tell you anything about Shelly and Alandria. I think the most I know about Alandria is Nicolandria, and I don't even understand that because I don't really know what happened with her and the other person. Most of that is because of what I consumed on social media. I focus on women who are emotionally dysregulated, who have been in toxic or abusive relationships. My clientele is Black women specifically. So there are many Black women versions of Huda. And I want y'all to come on this journey with me and let's see what we can learn from this season of Love Island. I do not watch reality shows. There is no reality show I watch from like beginning to end at all. I have watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Real Housewives of Atlanta. This season, the last few years, I haven't watched any of the episodes. I probably watch, Married to Medicine the most. And again, I'm not watching first episode to last. I probably watch the reunions and maybe the arc, when they get to the climax of the season. I'll probably watch that episode. Reality TV is not real. To me, there's no unseeing it beyond from when they started. Because when reality TV started, it was more like a documentary, right? They were just documenting the lives of people. But as with all things, if you study psychology, you'll understand group dynamics. The objective of the reality shows changed. People realize I could create a storyline. I do not have to tell the truth. I don't even have to tell part of the truth. I could just make things up. So I have definitely become disillusioned with reality shows. And then the last dating show I watched was Ready to Love. It was the season that Aaron was on. That's probably the first season. And I was like, oh, y'all producers are actively picking people that are not interested in love, that are not interested in partnership, that are just here for clout, for fame, for some brand deals. And I was so like disappointed with the way that season went and how people were not directing women away from Aaron, who's so obviously to me, but I've undergone my own healing journey. So obviously to me was just playing a game, right? He was just there just to be there. He was not open, not interested, not looking for a real connection. So I cannot watch any of these shows. And now, now after being in my own bubble for a while, like I think I've always been in my own world, but branching out, I'm not at school. I don't have to be around people I don't want to be around. I literally live in a bubble where I'm surrounded by people who love and care about me, who are interesting, right? Who are not anti-Black, who are not homophobic. Like I just live in this really easy, peaceful, fun world. And when I venture out of that, I'm like, woo, y'all still going crazy? Y'all still crushing out? Y'all still having all these difficulties at all these ages? So I honestly am disgusted with series like Love Island and the kind of things that they are encouraging contestants to do. I think it's dehumanizing. I think it's demeaning. I think it takes the love, the actual love, kindness, caring, compassion out of a romantic dating experience. I think it's so gross, the kind of challenges that these contestants have to do. I also think it's a psychological horror, the fact that they are shrouded from the outside world and do not even get to know what time it is. I think all of those things, if someone was trying to conduct an experiment, although it's a social experiment, if you really were trying to do research, like, and you had to go through IRB and all those kind of things, you would not get approved to do this to people because it's not right. I think it's unethical in so many ways. But this is not a research study. This is a reality show that people are signing up for and giving their consent away. I don't listen. So that's my spiel on reality TV in general. My soul cannot handle it. I do not think romance should be a luxury. I do not think people should be scammed into being vulnerable, trying to find connection. But I do understand that we are in a loneliness epidemic. Men and women are as lonely as they've ever been. And I do think part of that is COVID. Part of it is this fear of being seen, not just seen, fear of being perceived, fear of being watched, because everybody has a phone now. I cannot imagine what that is like to be 20 and to have everyone in the room have a camera that can catch any moment of you at any second, and to not want to appear in a certain way. I understand part of the reasons we're in this loneliness epidemic. Let's talk about stands, right? So I don't have an emotional connection to Huda or any of the contestants on Love Island. I didn't watch the series. I understand that it comes on 6 days a week, and be like having someone on your phone, if you're watching on your phone or if you're watching it on a TV or communally with a number of people, that you can start to form a parasocial relationship. And there's a specific definition of parasocial relationship, but I think any emotional connection that you have with someone who doesn't know you is a parasocial relationship. So I didn't watch any of these people, so I don't really care. I don't really care. If whatever you say about Huda is really not gonna affect me. I'm very curious, like the psychologist in me is trying to understand human behavior. But if you say something about Wendy Williams or Beyonce, like I might have to, right? You'll get a rise out of me, a response. I have a parasocial relationship with them. I think it's normal, natural for human beings to have parasocial relationships with people. We have feelings, and feelings can be evoked by a person that we're watching, that we admire, or that we feel some kind of connection to. So in and of themselves, they're not bad. When we get into the stands, the people that have no sense of self, that have no self-worth, and so they've put all of their self-worth and sense of self on another person that doesn't know them. And so there are people who are stands of Huda who, because they have no identity and they've taken on the identity of Huda, if you say something bad about Huda, they personally feel attacked, right? They personally feel like you have done something to themselves. And so they now feel like they have to defend themselves as if you said something about them, right? If you said something to me, right, or you commented on my parenting or something, I wouldn't care about your opinion. But in general, if someone is saying something directly to you, you're probably going to respond, try to defend yourself or explain something. If they're saying something about somebody you don't know, oh, did you know that girl down the street? Like, she's so stupid. You'd be like, who? Like, what does that have to do with me? Literally, everything with Huda has nothing to do with you. But because of this parasocial relationship where so much of a person's identity has been projected onto another person, we get the craziness that goes on online. And so I want to talk about what happened online, because I absolutely was fascinated with who became a fan of Huda, who became a stan of Huda, and who mostly nobody was really indifferent, but who disliked her and then who hated her. I think it's fair to say there are people online who absolutely hate Huda. People who are talking about they're gonna call CPS on her because of how she treated her daughter, when you've never seen how she's treated her daughter. but things like that where people became so negative. And then that's with anything on the internet, anything in the US, right? Anything in the US. Racism is everywhere, anti-blackness is everywhere, but it has never been done as specifically and as horrifically as it has been with chattel slavery in the United States. So it's different here. Race is just different here. I learned quickly when I arrived here from St. Croix. You cannot talk about anything in America without also including how does race factor into this. And I think part of what happened with the hate for Huda is there were women who also identified with Shelly and Olandria, like became stands of her, right? So feel protective of these women. And now you have this woman who is engaging in anti-Black behavior, maybe statements, microaggressions, who is abusive emotionally, verbally to other men that are there, Black men. How I feel like it's easy to dislike Huda then if that's how you identify. Again, I did not watch the show. I don't have any emotional attachments to any of these people, but I think I can point out the negative behaviors that are happening here. I specialize in trauma. I tried to watch the podcast where Huda was on. What I don't forget that is Alex. Is her name Alex? On the Call Her Daddy podcast. I'd never heard of this before, but I'm very curious about how. Listen, I love a healing journey. Okay, you'll find videos about Summer Walker on my channel. I love a little sad girl who's trying to figure out her power and her femininity and find her place in the world. I love that story arc, honestly. So I do see a world in which Huda actually does heal and improves herself. So I'm fascinated by the discourse that's around her and how people are now using her as a litmus test for like, which side are you on? Like, who did you vote for? Like, are you okay if you voted for Huda or if you think her behavior is okay? Her behavior is not okay. It's not okay. It's never right to be abusive towards anyone. But I really wonder if y'all understand trauma and like how some people that you've given grace to, it doesn't apply to Huda because she has hurt someone that you feel like you know specifically. The example I have in my mind is stories about Cassie and how she treated Kim Porter. Like, y'all know she was absolutely nasty to that woman, right? Like, one of the stories was that she was threatening, teasing to make Kim Porter lick her used tampon. Diabolical stuff. Like, y'all use these words and it's not even appropriate. But this one, tell me that's not diabolical. That is obscene. That is out of this world. But that's in line with like the rest of the Diddy stuff. Cassie still deserves grace. It's still wrong for Cassie to be abused. So I skimmed the Call Her Daddy podcast because Huda goes off on a rant. And one of my like personal pet peeves are people who are impulsive, right? People who just like have verbal vomit and they just go and go and go and they don't really get to the point, or they get to the point eventually. Those people are very hard for me to listen to because all your pain is just shoved down my throat, right? I feel like I can feel the pain. It's one of those empath things. Is why I became a psychologist, because I care deeply about people. But the impulse, oh gosh, the impulsivity, especially like girls who are, oh my gosh, it just drives me crazy. So I would have done a better job of redirecting Huda when she was giving answers so that she was more direct. I did not see a problem with humanizing Huda while she's also, yes, abusive to other people. This is the story. I don't understand. The story literally goes this way. Child experiences abuse from adults. Child reenacts that abuse when they become adults. Child may or may not go through healing. Child abuses another child, influences, right, in a negative way that can lead to negative outcomes for the child. I think I was confused about why were people mad that they spent so much time on Huda's childhood. I did not feel like it was an excuse. I think all of the laughing were downplaying the actual abuse, coercion, manipulation that Huda does. I think we can say all those things and still say Huda still deserves to be respected. Huda still deserves grace. She's like a early 20 something. She's almost 25, right? She's like a mid 20 something year old who's figuring things out. The producers exploited her on TV. And is it really helpful for us to go on and on about how terrible she is? I understand reflecting on what's in the show, but no person is 100% bad. There are very few exceptions of people that I think skew more towards the evil side. But I saw a TikTok where a man was explaining other reality TV stars who were worse than Huda. Because honestly, people really act like Huda was just as bad as Jax from, is it Vanderpump Rules? That man, listen, that man really could end himself, his family, his, like, that woman. I don't know. And this is probably because of my own trauma background that I feel like you all can't really put anything into perspective. And then I wanted to talk about how you all have used words that are supposed to fit within the context of abusive relationships and apply them to everything. Y'all drive me crazy with this. But I understand y'all didn't go to school for 10 years to study this stuff. And then you didn't get a mentor, to a supervisor to make sure that you were applying it in the correct way. I get it. This is what I'm here for. I think the first word that was driving me crazy was love bombing. Love bombing is a tactic used specifically in abusive relationships or relationships where there is a power imbalance, where the person's intention is to give you a lot of, to hurt you. Their intention is to hurt you. They give you a lot of compliments, but not because they mean it. They don't really mean it. They're saying it because they know you are going to like it. And their goal is for you to be sucked in to all of the praise so that then they can insult you to make you feel bad about themselves, make you feel bad about yourself. The goal is not to make you feel good, make you feel good, make you feel good, period. The goal is to harm you emotionally. That's the goal of love bombing. You can say in the beginning of a relationship where there's no toxicity, oh, we moved quickly, right? He gave me a lot of compliments in the beginning, right? We really connected really fast and we spent a lot of time together. That's not love bombing. Love bombing is you have to want to make the person feel bad. If anyone in this situation would have engaged in love bombing, it probably would be Huda, not Jeremiah. Huda was the one that ended up calling him, did she say a pussy ass bitch? Did she? I didn't never catch that clip, but I heard many people say over and over that she engaged in name calling. Calling someone a name is abusive behavior. So then we can go into the side of abusive relationship when we're talking about how Huda interacts. I also heard people say Jeremiah also did some things to Huda. I don't know if it was like not communicating with her, not checking on her, just certain things. And I do believe that you all are seeing more and more what I've been saying for a long time. It takes two toxic people to be in a toxic relationship, but you can explicitly see that Huda is the one that's doing more harm. But Jeremiah is not absolved of responsibility, just in that sense. Okay. The next word, gaslighting. Again, a specific label for use in abusive relationship. Gaslighting is not synonymous with lying. I think that's what you all mean when you say gaslighting. He cheated on me. He said he was going to be at his mother's house and he was really at his other girlfriend's house. That's not gaslighting. That's lying. That man told a lie. He was trying to manipulate you. Gaslighting is an attempt to disrupt someone's reality. And I think because you all also use the word delulu a lot, you think what a delusion, you think you know what a delusion is. You don't know what a delusion is. My father has delusions. He's literally out of touch with reality. He's the only one who believes the things he believes. The word that you all mean when you say delulu is in denial. There are people who will not admit that the person they're interested in is not interested in them. They're like in a fantasy world, but it's not like out of touch with reality. Because when I do reality testing with you, you're like, yeah, I know. He doesn't really, he hasn't really, no. The person who's literally delusional is going to reject all pieces of evidence that say the opposite. And their delusions are not somebody doesn't like them. It's usually somebody's out to kill me. And they're an agent for the CIA. But this is not a joke, right? They don't feel like that. They know it. They know for sure. And here's the evidence, here's the evidence, here's the evidence. And you say, well, you don't have any money. Why would the CIA be after you? They will have a reason. Do you understand? And that conversations with that person is going to go in a circular way. They're not going to be open to reality testing as we define it. Okay, you understand? The person who gaslights creates a series of lies for the purpose of disrupting your reality so you no longer know what's real. And for people who've never experienced it, I don't really think you have a concept of what it means to know when something isn't real. I don't think you know what that is like. I don't think you know. So I would encourage you to stop using those words. Just say somebody's lying. That's what they're doing. I think the last word is narcissist. Oh my gosh. Social media has taken this word and run with it. Someone who's a narcissist, I don't know if you all really mean they actually meet criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. That's what I think you all mean when you say it. I've told somebody else there are a lot of different personality disorders. Is it 10? Is it 12? I forget. It's not something I use in my DSM on a regular basis because personality disorders are so rare. Yes, you are going to see them more in media because they want attention. That's true. They feel so empty inside that they want attention. I think better words for what you are describing is self-centered, selfish, mean, harmful to other people. I really don't think you all understand what narcissism means. I know there are tons and tons of video on social media, on YouTube about narcissism. And I really would say stay away from those because they're not helpful. They don't put into context the cluster that narcissistic personality disorder falls into, the personality cluster. And they do not also cover the other personality clusters that are in existence that can be similar to. There are other disorders that are similar to narcissism. Just say the person is selfish. Just say they're being mean. I'm just saying. Okay. I did want to make a point about incest. This video is sponsored by me. Check out my website, spiritsoulsense.com, for a couple of free downloads. I also have my poetry ebook for sale, and you can also purchase my artwork and merch to help support my channel. I have another video where I briefly touch on incest. Yes, of course, right? I specialize in trauma, sexual trauma, emotional abuse. I have a lot of resources on my channel where I talk about how to heal from trauma, right? How to heal from some of the most heinous experiences that someone can have. Incest could be between siblings, could be between a father, mother, cousin. Cousins don't really count. It's really the nuclear family that often we think of as incest. But yes, cousins can be perpetrators of sexual abuse, that kind of stuff. Your uncle, all those things can occur. Is most likely to be the experience a child has because most people don't have access to a child that's not theirs, right? If it's in your family, those are the people who have most contact. And then the layer after that will be people who work with children. So teachers, coaches, those kind of people who then have access to, right? It'll be rare for a random person off the street to be the one to be the perpetrator of sexual violence because it's so hard to get a child alone. Yeah, it's hard to get a child alone. And so you really have to be the person who's perpetrating, right? And I worked with teenagers who were sexual offenders. I worked with other children who were sexual victims. It's hard to get a child alone. And so you need to have a lot of access to a child to be able to groom them over time so that they feel comfortable being alone with you and then comfortable not telling. I'm a mommy. What was the name of this lady? There's a lady on TikTok, Rosalie, who talked about how her parents, including specifically her mother, groomed her sexually so that she would be susceptible. This is on purpose. They did it on purpose so that they could sell her, basically. Do you understand what I'm saying? She's done her own healing and she's sharing her story on social media. I think she's doing it in a very positive, helpful, and impactful way. And so she did a video on Huda and how Huda was sexualizing, how she was expressing that she was a mom. I'm a mommy. And the guy was like, mamacita. Like all of those that interaction only attracts a certain kind of man. So I don't think the way trauma works, the way she communicated to him, I think that was just the friend, right? Some men see that as a green flag for them to swoop in and find a child who's vulnerable because their mom is in such denial about who she is, how she presents, and what she attracts that she allows things to happen. When I'm working with my clients, I always tell them that their mom knew. She knew. She knew. She knew. She knew. And if she didn't know, she should have known, right? Because there is an experience of anger and rage that I think is important to model for my clients so that they understand that the adults who allowed this thing to happen fail them. If it happens once, it happened too many times. But if it happened more than once, they knew. You didn't have to tell them. They knew and they failed you. So if I'm saying that, Huda, this kind of behavior, which we rarely see on TV, this is what I see in real life. You understand? I see clients who've been through this experience, who literally have a mother like Huda, or who are Hudas themselves, come to me trying to figure out, trying to make sense of their world, because they've been living in a fantasy world of what they think should be happening versus shouldn't be happening, what they think they should deserve versus what they didn't. So the way Huda described her family situation and how her father was physically abusive to her mother, she alluded to, but she never explicitly said that she was sexually abused. I don't know if she was sexually abused. What matters more here is her perception of a thing versus the actual thing. And she didn't say what she thought happened. She did say that her family doesn't believe her. Often with children, it's important to consider a child's mind. That's why I say it doesn't really matter what happened. Their perception of what happened is much more important than getting the actual factual data in terms of healing. Now, if you want to bring like a criminal case, yes, what actually happened is very, very important. But for the healing process, I take what my client says because it's their reality. I take what they say and I work with what they say. The perception of how bad a thing is also depends on like the child. How sensitive is the child? How many resources do they have? What's their interpretation of this thing that happened? And so some children can interpret a look, because we all know what it looks like to be sexually desired. A child doesn't know what the look means, but they know what the look makes them feel. It's very uncomfortable for an adult to sexualize a child. I don't know what happened, but I'm telling you, it could be as it's not simple, but it could be as detached as a look, right, that her father gave her, but it could be as severe as actual rape. Do you understand? It could be that. It could be a number of things in between. It could be he was watching porn while I was in my room and I could hear him. Like, it could be so many different things. And I'm telling you, I've seen and heard so many different things, so many different variations of a way a child can be traumatized. And because they're children, they should not be exposed to sexually explicit material, period. They need to explore on their own with themselves, right? So it's normal for kids to explore their bodies and want to touch certain parts, but their life should be so interesting and so full that they're not preoccupied with what is happening sexually, right? And that by the time they reach, 17 is the average age that kids have sex. I think 15 is too early, but 15 I can understand. The sexual secondary sex characteristics start to happen in late teenage years. 13 I think is way too young for kids to be having sex. That's my own personal beliefs, but I do know that kids who are not supervised properly do start to experiment because they've heard things, seen things, they've watched movies, and they want to see how it feels. That's why you have to watch them, okay? You have to watch them and make sure that you know where they are when they're not in your care, and then the safety of the kind of person that would be around them. Yeah, and then check in with them all the time. Most kids are not going to volunteer the information, but if you ask them directly, they will give you some kind of sign if something is wrong. And then the sexual coercion maybe is my last point, where what Huda did to Chris, counting down, literally is sexual coercion. It is, so consent is an enthusiastic yes. If you are not giving or receiving an enthusiastic yes, the answer is no. And if someone says or their behavior is no, you stop. Trying to convince someone after they've said no is sexual coercion. No one should be pressuring you to have sex, asking you over and over again, whining, telling you they're not going to do something or they're going to treat you bad the next day. That is literally sexual coercion. That's abuse. It is. That's abusive behavior that somebody is engaging in. I think it's important that you all understand what abuse is and what it looks like. When I first found out I was in an abusive relationship, I had no idea. I was surprised. I was like, what do you mean? Him being mean to me and calling me names and like being this nasty to me and then giving me the silent treatment, that's abuse? I thought that was just him being mad, right? There is a difference between abuse, toxicity, and a healthy relationship, right? Healthy relationships are not just an absence of abuse. They're the presence of lightheartedness, ease, flow, happiness. Like, you all are going to have disagreements, but that they are resolved quickly and directly, and that no one is using tactics of abuse or emotional dysregulation. But because, I don't know, y'all are human and we all have been through a thing or two, lots of people show up in this way in relationships to some degree. Most people are not as severe as Huda, but anyone who can relate to Huda's crash out, girl, you need help. You need help. I am considering taking clients. If you feel like I would be a good fit for you as you're learning to process your emotions, heal, you can reach out to me. My information is going to be in the description box. Let me see. Is there anything else? I think that's it. I think it's very important for you to do your own healing. Direct this video or other videos on my channel to someone that you think it could help. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more videos on healing, and thank you for watching.